All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Monday Motivation. As usual, this is mindset and motivation. I often tell my clients that the mindset habits are often the most important habits because these are usually the things that shape us. These are the habits that define us. These are the habits that dictate what we do, right? So I hope you've been enjoying these Monday motivations because they're designed to help you create the right mindset for your future success. And sometimes, it's important to go beyond the surface, go a little deeper, just like we do with your why. When we talk about your why, I ask you to go deeper than the surface level. I want to lose weight. I want to get healthy because I want to fit in my clothes. I want to get healthy because I want to be able to do things with the grandkids or keep up with the grandkids. I want to get healthy because I want to feel good about myself. Those are all good reasons, but you've used them before. You got to go deeper than that to find the real reason behind, the real why. That is going to help propel you forward from where you are. Remember, what got you here won't get you there. You're not there yet, right? And you don't get what you want, you get who you become. So who are you becoming and what's going to help you to get to that person who you're becoming? And often, it needs some deep emotional, existential reason to keep you going. And often, it also means that you need to look at some of those deep things that are still controlling your life. The deep things that are still shaping your perception of reality and what is true for you and how you operate in the world, how you show up in the world. And I call these, your defining moments. And often we have a certain defining moments that are so huge and so impactful that they end up shaping the rest of our lives, a lot of times unconsciously. A lot of times we're not even aware that our lives are being shaped by things that happened decades ago. And these are the defining moments that over the years have been very impactful for a lot of my clients who are on this journey, trying to get healthy, trying to lose weight, and trying to change their bodies. And often it takes really going back in time and identifying those defining moments that are still shaping your perceptions, that are still shaping the way you show up in the world, that are still controlling you. A lot of times these are traumatic events. For a lot of my weight loss clients, the traumatic events that happened earlier in life, and believe me, it could go way back to childhood, are the things that are still shaping and controlling their behavior and their perception of reality. So what defining moments are still shaping the way you show up in the world and how you see yourself? Whether you feel like you are lovable, whether you feel like you are enough, what defining moments are shaping that reality? Over the years, I've talked to a number of clients. I recall, one client, going back to when she was probably about 8 years old. And she said that, she was an early bloomer and she was just developing. And she recalls, just going to school one day and the way that she was walking up the stairs and the way that a teacher looked at her made her so uncomfortable. It made her felt like she didn't want to be seen anymore. Because whatever that look was, she couldn't identify it at the time, but she knew it wasn't right. It didn't feel right. it feel violating. She felt violated. And from that moment, she felt that, if I weren't attractive, then people wouldn't look at me that way. People wouldn't see me that way, in such a sexual way. Of course, she didn't know that at the time, but now she knows it was a very sexual way, because she was an early bloomer developing into a young lady. So she was a bit ahead of her age. And that one moment, right? That one moment, at 8 years old, continued to shape her reality for decades. For decades, she continued to gain weight. For decades, she continued to struggle with weight loss because she didn't want to lose the weight. Because she felt that if she was attractive, she would be violated. But if she weren't attractive, men wouldn't look at her that way, and she wouldn't feel so violated. Now you see the importance of these defining moments? These are moments that end up shaping the rest of your lives. I have other clients who have told me, and yes, I have, a lot of times my clients tell me things that they say, Coach, I have never, ever shared this out loud with anyone before. And these are usually the defining moments that are still controlling your lives. What are the secrets you're still holding on to that you haven't shared, that you haven't dared to let out of the closet, that you haven't dared to bring to the light? You're still covering them up in the darkness. What are those secrets that you need to uncover, that you need to look at, that you need to deal with and work through? Because those secrets are still controlling your life. Those are the defining moments that are still controlling your life. And until you deal with them, until you bring them out of the darkness and into the light, until you're able to look them face to face in the eye and give them a voice, give that part of you that has been crying out to be heard a voice, they will continue to shape your life. They will continue to shape the way you show up. They will continue to shape the results you get or the lack thereof. They will continue to shape how you sabotage yourself. They will continue to shape your life. So those defining moments, I urge you to just go back and revisit the moments that you have pushed into the darkness that are still controlling you. And believe me, they're controlling you from the shadows. I often call it your shadow self. And often your shadow self is that part of you that you don't want to talk about and that you don't want to bring to the light. But that's the part that is controlling you. So you need to go back and you need to take a look at that shadow self. You need to go back to that time of that defining moment. And you need to revisit that little girl, that little boy, and you need to give them a voice. This is one of the exercises I often use with my clients. You need to give a voice to the part of you that is crying out to be heard. And you see, we're not just one personality. We have multiple personalities because we have multiple parts of our personalities that are crying out to be heard, that often is shoved into the darkness and told to be quiet. So until you're able to revisit that and give a voice to that part of you that is crying out, that little 8-year-old who's crying out and say, oh, I feel violated. I didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel protected. You need to give a voice to that little 8-year-old. You need to give a voice to that part of you that is crying out to be heard. So here's an exercise for you. Here's one way that you can do that. I call it the empty chair. It's a very simple Gestalt psychology exercise. Right? You sit in front of an empty chair and you invite that part of you that needs to be heard to sit there with you in that empty chair. So in other words, that 8-year-old, you invite that 8-year-old to sit there and have a conversation with you, and invite her to be in a safe space and to give a voice to what she's always wanted to say. The things that you have never said. The things that you kept buried all these years that have been controlling you, that have gone unsaid. You need to give a voice to that part of you that is crying out to be heard. So you invite your little 8-year-old, you invite that part of you that needs to be heard to sit in that empty chair. And you create a safe space. There's no judgment. You create a safe space for that part of you, that aspect of your personality that needs to be heard. You give them a safe space, create a safe space for them to express themselves. What are they saying? What does it say? What is that little girl saying? What does that little boy say? What is it that they have to say? Allow them to speak freely, without judgment, without consequence. Allow that part of you to be heard. This is how you bring that moment to resolution. You give that part of your personality, that aspect of your personality that is dying to be heard. You've got to give it a voice. And until you give it a voice, it will continue to control your life from the shadows. Until you bring it forward and let what needs to be heard, it will continue to define you, to define your habits, to define your behaviors, to define how you sabotage yourself. Every time you get close to a goal, no, I can't really get there. So you find a way to sabotage yourself. Why? Because you're still being controlled by that aspect of your personality that is crying out to be heard. And until you give that part of yourself a voice, until you bring that forward, until you bring from the darkest depths of your soul the things that you have buried and give them a voice and let them be heard, they will continue to control you from the darkness. This is the work that needs to be done, my friends. You see, your defining moments can either define you or you can define them. For a lot of you, they're still defining you. You need to take back your power and start defining them. And the only way you can do that is by giving them a voice. And yes, sometimes it's very difficult. It's not an easy exercise. You try this empty chair exercise. It is not an easy exercise. Sometimes you have to. I've had clients who have gone through some very serious trauma, right? And sometimes it takes a while for them to be able to even get the words out and invite that part of themselves to speak, right? Whether it's molestation by a family member or, other childhood trauma, a lot of times it's going to take a while. It's going to take several visits for you to be able to Just bring forth that aspect of your personality and give her a voice, give him a voice. But it starts somewhere. Let it be now. Just sit there and allow the moment to unfold. Just sit there in front of that empty chair and allow the moment to unfold. You may not be ready, but that's okay. Just know that it's a safe space. And know that you're not alone. Know that if you need further assistance, I am here for you. This is the work that needs to be done. And this is what's going to take you where you need to go. Sometimes to move into the light, you have to step out of the shadows. If you continue to exist in the shadows, you will never fully embrace the light, which means you will never fully embrace the journey in front of you. So the question is, are you ready to step out of the darkness? Are you ready to step out of the shadows and step fully into the light? Are you ready to embrace the journey ahead of you? Are you ready to embrace your future self? Are you ready to become the person you want to become? Are you ready to fully bring into realization that future vision that you're looking to create? Are you willing? Are you ready to create that future self? And until you do, until you go back and revisit these defining moments that are still defining you, until you give a voice to those aspects of your personality that are crying out to be heard, I'll say you will continue to hold yourself back. You will continue to take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And it's really no fault of your own. You are just being controlled by your shadow self. So you must give a voice to the parts of you that are crying out to be heard. This is the work that needs to be done. I hope this is helpful.